Hello, everyone. It's time to explain Canadian politics through US political comparisons, because ultimately, Canada and the United States are strong allies, and we need to understand each other politically, so that we can cooperate to the best possible extent. So, let's dive right in. First, we need to classify the different segments of politics that need to be explained, so that we can divide them up, analyze them separately, then join them together in order to get the full picture. The categories we'd use to classify parts of Canadian politics are 1. The concrete political system, 2. Political parties and their general platforms, and 3. Similarities and differences with US politics. First off the bat, the Canadian political system. As you may know, we have a parliamentary system, with a bunch of about equally populated geographical regions, each electing one member of parliament. These are called ridings. Throughout the country, we have 338 ridings, which you can see on this map. Parliament is comparable to, let's say, the US House of Representatives, with each party trying to get as many seats as possible. The difference between this and the House of Representatives is that we don't have an independently elected president or prime minister. Our prime minister is usually the leader of the largest political party in Parliament. Let's use as an example current Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He wasn't elected in one big cross-country election. Instead, on election day, people in each of the ridings voted for who would be their local MP, or Member of Parliament. The largest number of MPs in the 2019 election came from the Liberal Party of Canada. So, as the Liberal Party leader, Justin Trudeau is then the Prime Minister of Canada. But, at the same time, he's also a member of Parliament, and while serving as Prime Minister, is also responsible for representing the riding which elected him, the urban Montreal riding of Papineau. The same goes for the other political party leaders. For example, Conservative Party of Canada leader Andrew Scheer also represents his own riding in Parliament, Regina-Capelle, a rural riding in the western province of Saskatchewan. In Parliament, different members from each of the parties can propose bills, ideas they have, debate regarding ideas, and so on. It is quite similar in many senses to the US House of Representatives. But now, you may be asking, so if Parliament is similar to the House, what's the Canadian equivalent of the US Senate? And that's the Canadian Senate. We also have one. Although, it is a bit different from the US one. First off, since Canadian senators are not elected. Instead, whenever a senator retires, it becomes the job of the government to appoint a new senator for their place. This used to happen through the Prime Minister deciding who they wanted for the position. But more recently, it's been an independent board analyzing who they think would be best for the position. Although, this has been the subject of some controversy, since it was found that the board was using a Liberal Party vetting software for background checking, so just how nonpartisan it is can be debated, and it has been. But, theoretically, the system should not be aligned with any specific party anymore. Another thing is that from the moment a senator is appointed to their position, they cannot be fired. They can stay in Senate until one of three things happens. 1. They hand in their resignation. 2. They're forced to retire when they turn 75 years old. Or 3. They are involved in some sort of serious crime, which takes priority over Senate rules. Can't be a senator if you're in prison. Also, even though senators are not elected to a given province, like how they're elected by their state in the United States, they do represent general geographical regions. There are 3 senators who represent the Northern Territories, 24 senators who represent the Western provinces, 24 who represent the biggest province of Ontario, 24 who represent the second biggest province of Quebec, another 24 for the Atlantic provinces, and finally 6 for Newfoundland and Labrador. We honestly had no idea what region to include it in, since it's the latest province to actually get any senators. So we just made it its own region. Okay, so that's the legislative branch of the Canadian political system. So you may now be wondering, what about the other branches? Don't worry, we're gonna go through the judicial branch now, specifically the Supreme Court of Canada. It's basically the same as the United States Supreme Court, except it's Canada, so they wear Santa robes. But something which is more interesting is the executive wing of Canadian politics. As I've already said in this video, we have a Prime Minister, who is currently Justin Trudeau. This makes Justin Trudeau the head of government, but he isn't the head of state. That position goes to our Governor General, Julie Payette. Now, what is the position of Governor General, and what do they do? Well, Canada is a monarchy, and part of the British Commonwealth, so technically, we have Queen Elizabeth presiding over Canada. In reality, she isn't concerned with Canadian politics, so instead, we have an appointed Governor General who symbolically represents the Queen. Although, even the Governor General doesn't have any real power. They're appointed by the Queen at the Prime Minister's recommendation, so as long as they're not a completely absurd choice, the Queen will basically say yes to anybody the Prime Minister nominates. The Governor General is really just a rubber stamp that says yes to everything, while also being a figurehead, going here and there across the country, attending ceremonies, and so on. So really, the power rests with the Prime Minister, who then appoints a cabinet of ministers to deal with specific topics, like the Minister of Finance, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of National Defense, and more. Each Prime Minister can define what positions they want in their cabinet, and who they want to fill those positions. There are usually about 30 ministers in a cabinet, and there are also usually members of Parliament, who simultaneously represent their own riding and their position in cabinet. We also have a Deputy Prime Minister included in said cabinet, which is sort of like the position of Vice President in the United States. They are also usually a member of Parliament. We currently have Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who is the former Minister of Foreign Affairs. So that's a general explanation of how the political system works. Now, let's get on to the political parties, which is quite a fun topic. Canada currently has 5 parties in Parliament, as well as a few other fringe ones which make appearances now and then. So let's go through them from most to least seats in Parliament. First off, we have the Liberal Party of Canada, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Broadly speaking, this is Canada's center-left party on the political spectrum, which I think we have to talk about the political spectrum for a second. Many people say that Canada's political spectrum is America's but shifted left, which is correct when it comes to some issues, but I think it's more issue-specific. And saying that it's to the left generally is a bit of an oversimplification, because a leftward shift is not always the case. So after we go through the parties, we'll put an issue up on the screen and compare their political parties' positions, and then you can compare it to the Democrats or Republicans in the US. But if I did have to compare the Liberals, I would say that they're somewhat similar to moderate Democrats, if not somewhat left of there. Next up is the Conservative Party of Canada, currently led by Andrew Scheer. This is Canada's center-right party on the political spectrum. In American politics, the Conservatives would be somewhere between moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans. The Liberal and Conservative parties are usually the ones competing for the position of Prime Minister, and they are the most mainstream parties. Now, in third place, we get to the Bloc Québécois, led by Yves-François Blanchet, which only runs candidates in the French province of Quebec. They are a separatist party that wants Quebec to be its own nation, which was a popular idea back in 1995, when they held a referendum to leave Canada. Canadian unity won by less than 1%. But since then, the actual separatism has become less prominent. Instead, the Bloc is seen as a French-speaking and Quebec interests party. Also, on the political spectrum, since Quebec is arguably the most left-leaning province in Canada, this party can also be found on the left of the political spectrum, to the left of the Liberals, having been described as a democratic socialist party according to their policy ideas, although they are not the Democratic Socialist Party of Canada. Instead, that would be the New Democratic Party of Canada, or NDP, led by Jagmeet Singh. Politically, it's quite similar to the Bloc Québécois, with some distinct exceptions, like not calling Quebec a separate nation. If we were to compare the NDP with a US equivalent, it would most likely be Bernie Sanders and his primary campaign for the Democratic Party. Additionally, Singh is the first leader of a major Canadian political party who is a visible minority. But the political space for the NDP is quite competitive, since there aren't a tremendous amount of voters left of the Liberals, but there are three parties competing there: the Bloc, the NDP, and another one, which is the Green Party of Canada. Now, this is a bit more debatable as to whether it's a major Canadian political party, but it has consistently gotten at least one seat in Parliament over the last few elections. It has never gotten more than 3 seats, though. The US equivalent to the Green Party is quite simple: the American Green Party, led by Jill Stein. Another party whose fringe status has been debated is the People's Party of Canada, which was just created prior to the 2019 election by dissatisfied former Conservative Maxime Bernier, who said that the Conservative Party had moved too far to the left, instead opting for a more Trump-like Republican conservatism, trying to make an NDP but for the political right, like how much of the time the NDP is criticizing the Liberals from the left. He wanted to win some seats in Parliament and criticize the Conservatives from the political right. But that didn't work out, and he lost his own seat in Parliament, and only got about 1.6% of the vote nationally, leading many to think that this won't be a major factor in Canadian politics from the next election onwards, and that the People's Party will join the likes of the next few fringe parties. The first of which is the Libertarian Party of Canada. Just like the United States, Canada has its own fringe Libertarian Party, which leans very hard toward economic conservatism, but very hard left towards social issues. Along with it, in the fringe, we find the Rhinoceros Party of Canada, which is a joke party created by a former Quebec comedian. Their most recent stunt was running a guy named Maxime Bernier against the real Maxime Bernier in the election for his own riding. Although, even if you added all of the fake Bernier's votes to the real Bernier, he still would have lost his own riding. There's also the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. If you guessed it's communist, then you guessed correctly. But since a political spectrum can't fully represent the party's stances on different issues, let's compare their positions on a variety of issues, including the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, Greens, and People's Party, as well as the Bloc, even though it is regional to Quebec. First off, climate change and carbon tax. Liberals implement a carbon tax, which will gradually increase every year, hoping to reduce carbon emissions as per the 2015 Paris Climate Accords. Conservatives cut the carbon tax and focus on green technology to reduce emissions without taxing companies and individuals. NDP add on to the Liberal carbon tax by cutting rebates from the current program, which would increase taxes on industrial producers. Bloc carbon tax with increased rates. Green Party keep carbon tax while also funding housing retrofits across Canada to reduce emissions by 60% by 2030. They don't say exactly how this will be possible, though. And the People's Party, they say climate change isn't real. Government budget. Liberals run deficits to stimulate the economy during times of economic growth and recession. Conservatives gradually move towards a balanced budget during times of economic growth, but run deficits during recessions to stimulate the economy. NDP run larger deficits than the Liberals to stimulate the economy and provide increased social programs during times of economic growth and recession. Bloc not really applicable since the Canadian budget as a whole does not concern Quebec specifically. Green Party balance the budget by drastically increasing taxes and run deficits during economic recessions. People's Party balance the budget however necessary. Oil and gas. Liberals might approve projects on a case-by-case basis, but the oil sector is not a main concern for them. So, many projects could take longer than usual. Conservatives fast-track solutions to challenges that the oil sector is facing, and create a national energy corridor through which resources can be transported from coast to coast. NDP cancel pipeline projects and end fossil fuel subsidies. Bloc says Canada should not be helping the oil industry and not create an energy corridor through Quebec. Green Party says cancel all fossil fuel projects, phasing out all oil by 2030. And the People's Party create a streamlined process for oil project approval. Freedom of religion and Quebec Bill 21, which prevents Quebec's public employees from wearing religious symbols while working. Liberals say Bill 21 is a step backwards and the party opposes it, but they will not intervene into Quebec politics. Conservatives opposed to Bill 21. Its legality should be tested in court, but they will not directly intervene in Quebec politics. NDP says that Bill 21 is discriminatory, but would not oppose the government of Quebec in court. The Bloc supports Bill 21 and the Quebec government. Greens opposed but will not directly oppose it. And then the People's Party has not opposed Bill 21. Abortion. Liberals, pro-choice. Conservatives, pro-choice. NDP, pro-choice. Bloc, pro-choice. Green, pro-choice. People's Party, pro-life with certain exceptions. Then, gay marriage. Liberals, pro-gay marriage. Conservatives, pro-gay marriage. NDP, pro-gay marriage. Bloc, pro-gay marriage. Green, pro-gay marriage. And then the People's Party, candidates can express whatever their positions are. So, we can see that in some cases, parties lean further to the left than U.S. political parties. In some cases, it aligns with a U.S. party. In some cases, they may lean further right. It's only through analysis on an issue-by-issue basis that you can really get a feel for Canadian politics. Hope you enjoyed Canadian Politics Explained. If you'd like to see more videos like it, please like and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye!